of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristero. Chapter 19, Making a Splash. At first, when his mom had woken him and told him that the self-defense lessons had to be postponed, he had been worried. Huh? Why? What's happened? Is Aizawa-san okay? Did someone attack the cafe? Is he sick? Is Domini okay? His mother, much to his dismay, had to block the doorway as she promised that the kindly man and his employee were fine, her smile strained in a way that suggested she was trying to keep something from him. Guys, what's going on? Eiichiro had texted not even a few minutes later. Apparently, all of their parents had been contacted. All of them were similarly tight-lipped about the situation, too. Daku, you and Toshi live like 2 minutes away. Gotcha reminded, all of them now throwing their worries and ideas into a group chat. Get your ass down there and see what's happening!
Mom's locked the door.
He typed back with a sad and worried face emoji.
She says that everything's okay and that we're going to the cafe at lunchtime.
That's going to take me too, Ochako commented. Yeah, my mom said we were going at 12. Denki added. They showed me a text from Aizawa-san, so I know it's legit. The hell? Katsuki typed before they went offline.
I wonder what's going on.
Do you typed?
Maybe some of their kitchen equipment broke or something?
I hope not.
Hitoshi wrote, a sad emoji appearing.
That kind of stuff is super expensive. What if he has to close?
I think we're all getting a little ahead of ourselves. He can close the door, Neko! Ichiro virtually yelled. I'll get my mom to loan him some money! Blinking a shock of worry and fear, he couldn't bear the thought himself running through him. Izuku watched as the chat grew more and more concerned, his eyes tearing. What would they do if the cafe closed, if Aizawa-san moved away? Everyone calm the hell down! Gasping, his hands bringing the phone closer to his face, he heard himself whisper a hopeful, Kajan? The hags told me what's going on, he told them. Just get to the cafe at 12 and look happy, okay? Aizawa-san's gone to a lot of trouble and is meant to be a surprise, a good one. So shut up and have your breakfasts and don't yell at your folks because they've helped too. Then he went offline again. Itoshi typed.
Well, it is Bakugo.
He furthered.
He's loud, but he doesn't lie.
He reasoned. Nodding, despite no one being able to see him, Izuku rubbed at his eyes and sniffed back his sadness. See you all at 12 then? Denki asked.
I'll be there. General.
Kajan's too manly to let us down. I'll be there.
Izu, walk down with me, yeah?
You got it, Toshi, he replied to the boy who only lived a block away, his shoulders relaxing as he put down his phone, sighed, and looked out of the window to see another flawless azure sky. Surely nothing bad could happen on a day like today, right? Checking everything over, his eyes casting a critical glance at his reflection in his cafe window to regard the pink board shorts Dabi had gotten him. What? You wore too much black, and there were lots of different colored chibi cats wearing snorkels and rubber rings all over it, so it's cafe branding, right?
Still said.
Shouta hummed. It wasn't that he didn't think they were cute, because they were, and God knew he didn't care what people thought. It was just that these must have been quite pricey, that's all. He and Tomura had, apparently, bought them for him with a less conspicuous white t-shirt sporting just one of the adorable anime felines. However, he didn't have time to muse about such things. It was 11:47, and soon, very soon, his little study group would arrive in swimsuits or clothes that their caregivers wouldn't care about them getting soaked to, hopefully, enjoy the 4 paddling pools, baskets of water balloons, inflatable floaty toys, and little water pistols he'd set up on the AstroTurf. The AstroTurf they'd all have to promise to stay on so that if anyone tripped or fell, because they wouldn't slip on the absorbent surface he'd tested it himself, then they wouldn't hurt themselves. Oh yes, based on everything Kohaku had advised him of, like getting the parents to consent via text, having many of them there to chaperone, and putting the tables and chairs with umbrellas out for them to sit in with Factor 40 sunscreen in ample supply, he'd covered all of his moral and legal bases, hadn't he? Because, sure, this wasn't a water park, but the setup should give them all some fun, shouldn't it? Furthermore, he'd made additional batches of lemonade, so staying hydrated would be easy. Although the parents had insisted that they'd be paying for drinks, it wasn't necessary, but still a nice gesture that he wouldn't turn down. Mitsuki, Kaminari-san, and Kirishima-san had also insisted in paying for the various items his employee and Tomura had picked out. Holy shit, man. Blinking, his head inclining toward his employer's crush, Shouta chuckled.
Do you think they'll like it?
And the kid looked sweltering. He probably wouldn't be able to persuade him or Dabi to join the activities he had planned.
If they don't like it, then they're spoiled brats of the highest order.
The 16-year-old shrugged before amused crimson eyes met his.
I can't believe that you're wearing those.
He chuckled.
You look
Stupid.
really fucking cool, actually.
The younger praised, his smile genuine and endearing.
But do me a favor and keep your shirt on, alright?
He asked before shuffling his canvas hat-top feet away from the area he'd been setting up all morning and approaching the door.
I'm wearing sunscreen.
Not what I meant, Captain.
The paler man smirked.
Me and Navi want to play through a new game, so if we get the deposit to come outside and chase off the pervs that'll flock around you, then we'll be real pissed off, you know?
He chuckled.
Pretty sure your boy would set fire to anyone he saw trying to get fresh.
He mused thoughtfully.
Someone as clueless as you needs people looking out for him. After all, he's right.
Balking. Because that was such a strange thing to say. Men walked around topless all the time in weather like this and weren't, according to any crime statistics he'd read, usually sexually harassed for it. The eraser quirk wielder snorted out a
If you say so.
before,
I hope I'm not overstepping here,
he said.
but I've got and made you a few things.
What?
He'll show you everything and talk you through them, alright?
He grinned.
Have them? Don't have them? That's fine.
He shrugged.
I just thought that they'd be useful, and no, before you say it, they're gifts.
He stressed,
Anything you want to have and use is yours, alright?
watching as the other blinked at him owlishly before slowly nodding. He gestured for the boy to go inside, whilst he approached the water hoses he'd attached to widest outer wall of his establishment, his hands tightening the different spray nozzles before giving them a test. It wasn't anything to write home about, but everything had been pretty easy to rig up, and if they enjoyed themselves today, then they could do this every other Sunday when it was hot, couldn't they? Diligently sticking to his mother's side with Hitoshi, even though both were itchy to run to the cafe, Izuku had eyed the beach bag she'd carried and listening to the way in which she'd carefully dodged their questions and caused both boys to pout. However, oh my gosh! As they left the apartment's lobby, their eyes widening, the boys threw their hands up in the air to madly wave back at Eijiro and Denki, their smiles exuberant as they squealed at them to get over here already! Not needed to be told twice. His mother's laughter like sweet music in the background. The two friends launched themselves toward the astroturfed area, both calling out, pleased, Hakamoru-san! Kirishima-san! Before rounding to the pools, their eyes looking from them to the 4 water hoses, spurting out sprays of deliciously cool water. Aizawa-san had made them their own water park? What? Aizawa-san, thank you. This is amazing. They cried as they rounded him, their little forms grabbing his legs for a quick hug before they joined their friends. Their friends who were grinning madly and sharing sneaky glances before, ha! Got ya! Howling out his laughter, Izuku danced away from the harmless jet of water that the raven-haired boy had aimed at him, his giggles rushing out of him before he picked up his own green, his favorite color. All of the little pistols were in their favorite shades. Wow! Pistol and fire back! Hitoshi, however, had merely stood with his arms wide open as Denki, his laughter hysterical, soaked him, his smile relieved. It was pretty hot after all. Kiro! Blanking, both he and the sharp-toothed boy calling a ceasefire, they waved happily at Tsuyu as she bounded towards them from the sidewalk, her father calling for her to be careful, sweetheart, don't go knocking anyone over, before she leapt into the air and dived, her flip-flops abandoned mid-flight into the largest of the 4 pools. Wah! The boys called as a wave of refreshingly pleasant water cascaded out to soak them, their laughter filling the air as they piled into the fish-accented inflatable to engage in a playful game of splashing, whilst their parents too took photos and lounged in the cafe chairs under the shade of large umbrellas. As surprises went, this was a pretty amazing one.
This is such a lovely idea.
Smiling at Mitsuki as he handed her a drink, Shouta cast his eyes over the 7 children approvingly. Ochako and Itoshi were blissed out in the smallest pool that was shaded with one of the large umbrellas, the pair quietly chatting, whilst the other 5 were playing their own version of water volleyball with a delighted Inko keeping score. All of the tots had equally marveled at her quirk being able to get the ball for them, too. Katsuki and Eijiro's enthusiastic hitting, punching, and spiking of the ball was definitely keeping her on her toes. It was wonderful to see her laughing and smiling, the stress you usually saw in her shoulders expelled for now. Some of the other mothers, however, had found another sport to occupy the time.
Aren't you going to get in for paddle too, Shoku?
The boisterous blonde teased, her brows waggling, whilst her 3 new best friends looked him up and down.
We'd help to get you out of your rat clothes, you know.
What, Mitsuki-chan? You're a married woman. Denki's mother giggled girlishly while the Steve struggled
Not to roll his eyes.
his form, choosing to walk away without comment as he approached the table which housed Ochako's parents. Oh, this is so refreshing, thank you. And Suyu's father, the 3 merrily chatting about their daughters.
This is really very generous, Aizawa-kun.
The toy-quirked male stated fondly, whilst he gratefully accepted a glass of lemonade, his hanky dabbing at his forehead before he took a long gulp or 2.
They've been working hard,
He shrugged.
and this was an easy enough treat to make for them.
He furthered nonchalantly, his expression softly pleased.
There's really nothing around here for them to do in this heat, is there?
The next thing we know, you'll be changing that for the better, won't you?
The brunette's mother smiled at him.
If I ever win the lottery, Aizawa-kun, I'll fund you to make all kinds of changes for our little ones.
She told him, her sweet smile just as radiant as her daughter's. Feeling his cheeks heat a little at the offer and praise. What he was doing wasn't so life-changing after all. Shouta had been about to say something when... Whoa! Why? Was he not surprised? Oh! It's Loud Club! It's like midnight! Hey! You guys want to join us for a water fight? Because he asked. Of course it was! And why wouldn't they be here? Oh, why wasn't All Might catching him with Sir Night-Eye and his sidekicks until too? No, Shouta, you look so cute. God, as if he didn't have enough female attention to deal with right now. Whoa, this is so cool. You don't mind if we crash the party, right? Loud Cloud grinned whilst he and his other friends slapped their heads together as though they were praying, their expressions sporting what he supposed was the allegedly infamous puppy dog eyes or something. Irrational though it was, he guessed that such a pleading, innocent look could be considered cute. Then, looking back to the children, he saw that same curious pulling of features and pouting of mouths across all of their faces. Damn everything, even Izuku's mother was quivering her bottom lip. Letting out a sigh, his expression softening despite himself, Shouta shook his head ruefully. How could he send them away now? At the trio before waving his hands across the pool and baskets of, strangely still untouched. He had given them a safety lecture. Water balloons. Fine, he grinned, but no quirks outside of his clouds for shade, and no running with wet feet on the concrete. He told them. When the trio whooped alongside the children, he told them to put anything breakable or electronic on that table. I'll go get you all the drink. Before making his way back toward the cafe's entrance, whilst the pros swiftly stripped off their tops. Thank God Midnight had a sports bra on. R-rated indeed. Phones and shoes. Once done, they tumbled with delighted screams into the 3rd unoccupied pool to make a big splash, then resurfaced amidst pleased, relieved chuckles. They shared sneaky glances before their hands reached for some of the brightly colored plastic water bombs and playfully launched them at the squealing, roaring, in the case of Katsuki, children. At the sound of raucous laughter from across the 3 generations of people, the parents were taking a flurry of photographs on their phones as Inko floated the filled balloons across the bodies of water for everyone to snag and throw, with Mitsuki, Tsuyu's father, and Dochago with Itoshi joining in. Filling the air, he couldn't help his smile growing despite himself. This had been a really good idea, hadn't it? Walking into the... God bless whoever came up with climate control. Cafe proper, Shouta had expected to see the teens playing on the games console.
Is everything...
Finding Tomura waiting for him by Dabi's favorite booth. The flame quirk user sat comfortably upon the padded bench, his smile soft. Had it been something he'd anticipated?
Thank you.
The hug he'd been pulled into was, similarly, a surprise.
Oh, you're welcome.
He replied, his arms returning the gesture as he brought the younger man to his chest, his gaze briefly locking with the darker-haired boy, who let out a quiet, fond huff.
You always look so surprised when you thank for things,
He muttered while slipping out of the bench to walk past them.
I'll get those loudmouths a drink while you two talk, alright?
He said before making his way into the service area and through to the kitchen. Nodding after him, Shouta allowed the shorter team, he remembered being his height at that age, to pull away, his eyes clocking the soft, usefully thin, black quirk-dampening gloves he'd asked Dobby to pass on to him. He could also scent the lotion he'd mixed to help ease the cracking and chafing of the other's pale, broken skin.
So, you wanted to talk?
He asked quietly. Carefully meeting his gaze, Tomer nodded. Looking at him, he could see where he'd applied the homemade salve. The flesh seemed smoother and softer, of coconut oil, chamomile, and aloe. It was a simple concoction he'd made for the youngest boy he'd looked after at the care center, little Naoki, his body covered in skin closer to old knotty tree bark than anything else. God, he remembered long nights holding him as he'd cried and scratched at the woody tightness his quirk had wrapped him in, since Itsu, the drunken, unfeeling mess that she was, only told him to
Scrub that mess harder in the bath, you little idiot.
He'd researched a remedy himself at his middle school's library. The balm he'd found a recipe for was blessedly cheap to make, and after he'd sneaked yen from the care center manager's purse while she'd been passed out one evening, he bought the ingredients and made a batch, with the other 3 boys assisting. Luckily, it not only did the trick, wow, Shoni, that feels so nice, but it smelt like summer, stored well in jars, and didn't cost even a fraction of the expensive moisturizer he'd been tempted to buy for the child so neglected by that fiendish bat of a woman. He couldn't wait for Naoki and the others to visit him in July. However, he had other boys to think about for the moment, didn't he?
Let's sit down then, alright?
Gesturing for them to slip into the booth, they waited for the taller teen, 3 lemonades on a tray in hand, to return to the cafe proper before exiting out and into the sunshine. Sounds of the children, pros, and other adults laughing wafted into cool quiet of his establishment with some of the summer heat as he went.
I have no idea that you could, buy things like this.
The decay quirk user murmured, his hands flexing inside the glossy, black, comfortable material. The same material that made up the gloves he'd gifted to Katsuki so he could spar with the other kids without worrying that his sweat would ignite and hurt someone. On reflection, he should have offered some to the kid before now, but although they'd had a few conversations prior to this, he'd not realized that the self-conscious shy teen had a quirk that activated through something as difficult to control and be mindful of as 5-finger contact until Dobby had told him shit. It was probably really difficult to live with, wasn't it? Hell, he and virtually everyone else he knew thought nothing of just grabbing and grasping things, did they?
They're not exactly a specialist item, but they're hard to come by since many people see such things as an infringement on their civil liberties.
He explained, his smile gentle. He could further the point by saying that this kind of support item was mainly used by the criminal justice system in the restraint of prisoners. However, that kind of fact probably wouldn't be appreciated by a boy who was every bit as mysterious as his lodger. He'd mentioned no family name, no parents, no other friends, where he lived, what he did for a living, or any family members. He also had that same kind of haunted look that shadowed Dobby's face from time to time. A look that spoke of trauma and pain. A look that begged for help, but was too frightened to ask for it.
How did you know that something like this would work? I mean, they feel so soothing. I don't know. They're kind of cooling, numbing, and I was able to pick up an empty cup with my whole hand and nothing bad happened.
And there was the quiet wonder, the astonished surprise that something could be done, that there truly was help to be had. Dobby had looked at him just like this on the first morning he'd woken up in their apartment and come down to eat the breakfast he'd left for him. It was a ritual by now. Those turquoise eyes completely bewildered that he'd not been hurt, tricked, or taken advantage of. Yes. As his employee had remembered last night, they probably were 2 peas in a pod. They probably did get each other more so than anyone else, but with some gentle coaxing and support, he might be able to give them the assistance they needed. Or find someone else who could.
I've met, worked with, and helped quite a few people who had powers similar to yours.
He related.
They're not infallible, though.
He gently warned.
Because if you really wanted to activate your quirk, then they'd disintegrate. But if that ever happens, just let me know and I'll get you some more, okay? Oh, and the bomb, too. Unless you'd like me to show you how to make it yourself.
Regarding him owlishly, the upcycled jam jar, because wasting such things by throwing them away should be criminal. Pulled free from the front pouch of his lighter-weight cherry-red hoodie, Domer bolts through a rueful laugh.
You made this?
I use it myself from time to time, and yes, I made it, but full disclosure, it's not my recipe.
He said with a mild shrug that had the other laughing properly this time, his eyes rolling.
And here I thought that you'd magic it up like you do with everything else.
He snorted before repocketing it, his smile warm.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, really.
He added quietly.
You just did.
Shouta chuckled, his eyes tracking Dobby as he walked past the window, the tray held over his head to defend against the sun.
Now then, don't you two have a game to play or something?
Grinning, Domra nodded, both of them greeting the taller teen as he entered the cafe, a relieved sigh leaving him as he stared up at the aircon unit reverently.
I'll leave you both to it then.
He mused before standing with a stretch.
Good luck shooting zombies, saving damsels, or whatever else it is that you do.
He snickered whilst the pair huffed after him, their words comically outraged by the summary of their complex strategy RPG as he slipped out of the door into the sunshine. Damn, maybe he should take a dip in one of the pools.